Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the honor and the pleasure of having Michael Mills, who is the founder of the TouchStone Business System. And we're going to be talking about SOP chaos to operational independence. Thank you for being here today, Michael. It's good to have you back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ken. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I know a little bit about you, but actually I know a lot about you with Michael Gerber and your business in New York and all this stuff. But I don't think my people, some of our listeners, we've got a lot more listeners now than we had a year ago. So if you can, just tell me who you are, where you came from, your experience with Michael Gerber and owning your own business, and then getting into TouchStone.
Sure. And I'll be brief. So first of all, I'm one of the managing partners of Business Design Corporation. That's our actual company name. And we're the company behind the TouchStone Business System. TouchStone is a software and services company. In a nutshell, we help businesses systematize their operations. We provide the tools and services to get your SOPs implemented. And that just makes it easier to hire, makes it easier to train people, makes it easier to manage new employees so you can get them up to speed quicker, and so you can scale with control and reliability. That E-Myth, the Michael Gerber story, I actually started, Ken was referring to a company that I owned in New York City. We computerized art galleries in the mid 80s. And what I found when I was doing that is that everything depended on me. And when I went to sell that company, I sold it for exponentially less. It's kind of embarrassing to say this, but I sold it for exponentially less than what I thought it was worth, because everything depended upon me. And so after that episode, I was doing some sales management and consulting, and I came across Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, Why Most Businesses Don't Work and What to Do About It. And I thought, wow, this is exactly what I needed and what my clients needed. And so I became a master certified E-Myth consultant, and we delivered Michael's E-Myth mastery program for probably 17 years, my business partner and myself. But what we found was that these clients, they were getting a fire hose of consulting information, but nobody was getting their processes written. And so we kind of thought, that's the very foundation of this book and this method. So we pivoted back in 2004 and really became a software and services company, focusing very tactically. So we leave the consulting up to you, Ken. And what we do is we focus on helping your clients systematize their business, how to get their processes implemented, their sales processes, their recruiting and hiring processes, their management processes. How do you get them written? How do you get them implemented? And just to kind of follow up on that, I did this to my own company, and you did it to your company, Ken. And that's how we met, is you had TouchStone and you developed all these processes, and subsequently, we have a library of your processes that your clients have access to, and we can talk about that later on in the program. But this gave me an opportunity. When I systematized my company, when my son turned 14, it gave me an opportunity to take a 14-month vacation. I traveled around the world with my wife and my son, who was 14 at the time. And when I came back, after being gone for more than a year, my business was still humming along as if I'd never left. And that's the opportunity, the freedom. I mean, that's kind of an extreme case of freedom, but it's a possibility that you can have when you've got processes in your business.
Yeah, that's wild. And that's what you want, You want a business to get run, and we've got some lawyers that are doing that to them. We got some that, I don't know, they take over a year off, but they take off 3 or 4 months and go with their family to Europe and do hiking, different things, fishing trips, whatever.
Yeah.
So we were talking before we started about SOP chaos. What exactly is that?
So a lot of people here, they read Michael Gerber and they think, oh, I've got to create a process-dependent business, but they don't have a plan and they don't have a tool. So they start writing processes using Microsoft Word or Google Docs. and they kind of say, well, here's a frustration, I'll write a process for that. Oh, here's another frustration, I'll write a process for that. And here's another frustration, I'll write a process for that. There's no plan. So what they end up with are a lot of processes for all sorts of things, because Michael Gerber does give you the sense that you're supposed to write a process for everything in your business. And I do not concur with that. I don't think you have to write a process for everything in the business, and we can speak to that in a minute. But what people do is they write all of these processes, and they've got them written in Google Docs, they've got them in checklists, they've got them in Word docs, they've got them in videos and audios, and they've got them stored in Dropbox. They're in what we call SOP chaos. Nobody can find the process that they need when they need it. If I'm training someone, if I'm onboarding someone, if I'm managing someone, trying to hold someone accountable, I can't find the process because I don't know who wrote it, where it got saved, how it was written. And so these business owners, these law firms, they're in SOP chaos. They've got all these processes all over the place, or they don't. You will have some clients, Ken, that don't have any processes, but those that do, whether you don't have any processes or whether you've got processes all over the place, the key is people have to follow them. And if they can't find them, they can't follow them. And so that's what happens with people. They get into SOP chaos. And the processes, they put all this time and energy into getting these processes written, but they never get implemented. So that's what we call SOP chaos. And it's kind of a term that we've coined.
So what can you do to avoid that or to remedy that?
Yeah. So basically, the reason that people fall into SOP chaos is that they don't have a process implementation tool. They don't have a process implementation plan. Two key things. So process implementation tool first. They're trying to use Word or Google Docs or some project management tool, or they think that their CRM application is a process implementation tool. These are not designed for process implementation. They're designed, like CRMs are tracking customers stuff. It's not for how to add a customer to your CRM or how to move a customer from a potential new client to a new client using one of the many different law firm applications. You need a tool that's designed for process implementation. So that's what TouchStone is. We basically took all of our eMyth experience and created this tool that's specifically designed for process implementation. But just having a tool, and it's very inexpensive, but just having a process implementation tool often isn't enough. You really need a process implementation plan. And this process implementation plan is not rocket science, but we've been doing this for 22, 23, 25 years. And so we've taken a very kind of complex process and drilled it down into 5 steps. And it's a process implementation plan where you get your vision designed, you organize all of your processes in 4 key functions, you create this organizational structure, and you link all those processes to specific roles or boxes on your organization chart to create position-specific operating manuals for every box on your org chart. So it's an integration of people, processes, and positions. That's a process implementation plan. And we have services, Ken, that can help your members build the systemic foundation of a process-dependent business. It doesn't take long. It probably takes 6 to 10 hours to build that foundation. And then after that, the writing of the processes and the implementation of the processes, that's an ongoing thing. For as long as an owner owns their company, they'll always be evaluating the processes and writing new processes and archiving old processes.
Yeah, we did that last quarter last year. We took about 90 days and worked on everybody updating the processes, and things have changed, how we do things. And just to be
Absolutely.
honest, we didn't fix it automatically when we did it, which was the way you should do it, right? But we didn't.
Yeah.
People, I'll get to it, that type of deal, and they just never got to it.
Yeah, part of what you're talking about is accountability. If you don't have processes, you can't hold people accountable to anything, right? I mean, most people train by what we call the tribal method of training. And they just say they don't have time to write the process. They don't have time to hire someone. They don't have time to train someone because they're not managing their capacity. They don't have any capacity planning process for hiring and recruiting. And so they just hire somebody and they just say, watch what I do. Well, studies show that you can only retain about 18% of what you're telling someone when you're using the tribal method of training. And so what ends up happening is they keep coming back to you over and over and over again, asking you the same question. And it's just frustrating. It's frustrating for you. It's frustrating for the manager. It's frustrating for the employee. And boom, someone gets fired. Someone quits because they don't want to be part of this company that roles aren't clarified. But it also comes back to that, what you were just talking about. Well, I'll get to it. You've got to have a process for even innovating your process. So yeah.
And I had, I was, when I met you, I had the old school. I had from my law firm, I had a lot of whole manuals and processes laid out. I mean, pretty good. I mean, but it was hell to keep up with because it was like, 4 or 5 inches thick.
Right.
They were, and you helped me get them inside of TouchStone. And I think it took us I think y'all worked with us 12 weeks, and then we worked another 12 weeks, if I remember correctly, to get it in there. It don't happen overnight because you can't just stop everything and do it. I mean, we just tried to work on it like an hour. Everybody worked an hour a week, kind of eat that like eat the elephant, not try to do it all. And everybody kind of participated. If you were expert at that job, then you did the processes for that job. Instead of like the law, like me trying to do it for everybody. No, that's number one. I would hate doing that. It would never get done. It would never get done.
Exactly. And who's the best person to write a process? Well, usually it's the person who's doing it, and they can actually write the process while they're doing it. And we have a whole team of support people that can teach your people how to write a process, because there's a real gift to learning how to write a process. One of the things we say, Ken, is that if to the extent that you write more and more content around a process, the processes get bigger and bigger and bigger. To the extent that you do that is to the extent that no one's ever going to read it, because they're going to pull it up. We're going to look at it and I don't have time to read that. I just got to move on. And so processes need to be simple, concise, right to the point, something someone can go boom, 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 boom. And we teach your people how to do that, how to write those processes so that they're easily implemented in the organization.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I talked to you last week and you were saying something about you all had added like AI to this.
Yeah. So we have a whole AR module that writes your processes for you. So you can literally go into the system and say, hey, give me a customer complaint system write me a customer complaint process for a Social Security law firm. And boom, it just writes it all down. And then you can add steps, edit steps, and hit save, and then link it to your intake person or your associate attorney or something like that. So they have a process instantly like that. We've also got another tool that's really interesting. Your members might know about this. It's called Scribe. Scribe is built into TouchStone as well, so that if you're using Clio or something and you need to show someone how to add a potential new client to Clio, you just start Scribe, add the new client to Clio, save it, and boom, it's in all those screenshots. Everything you did is built into TouchStone instantly like that.
Yeah. And I guess you can talk while you're doing it too, right?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. But and the other thing, but one of the things you're saying there, Ken, which I think is really important, processes, people have different learning styles, training styles, management styles. So some people don't like to follow instructions, written instructions. So TouchStone has a video tool inside it. And when a lot of the clients that we're working with, we're actually creating AI generated videos. So the employee writes the process, a documented process, and we take that documented process and we run it up to this AI tool that we're using called Hey Gen. It automatically creates a video that we then download and put into the client's account. So now you have both videos and documented instructions that people can use for different learning styles. The videos make it more fun, more interesting to actually learn a process and to train a process.
Well, we know as lawyers that juries, when they can see and hear at the same time, it's a lot better than just hearing. So
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, that's kind of exciting. So any law firms have used this that have been successful with it?
Yeah, we've worked with lots of PILMA clients. One right now is kind of a good example. The they're not a really small firm. I'm trying to think of how many employees they have. They probably have 12 employees. It's not a big firm, but it's not a three-person firm. And one of the things that we say is that there are three characteristics of freedom. So when you start a business, there are usually three things you want. You want freedom, money, and you want to make an impact somehow. You want to leave behind some sort of a legacy. So when we talk about freedom, one characteristic of freedom is to be able to sell the business for what it's worth, for what you know it's worth, not for what someone's willing to pay for it. And if you don't have processes, if everything depends on you, your business isn't worth much. It's just a job that no one wants. The second characteristic of business freedom is being, I like to call it, calling in for the numbers from the British Virgin Islands. That idea of taking, you know, 6 weeks, 3 months, 12 months off a year and know that the business is humming along without you having to be there. But the third, so it's selling the business for what it's worth, calling in for the numbers. The third characteristic of freedom is doing what you love to do in the firm without having to do all those things that you don't love doing, knowing that all those things that you don't love doing are actually being done by people who do love doing them. So this example of this one client of ours, yours, a Pilma member who we've worked with, basically he said to me, social security cases, they're kind of systematic. In fact, he kind of found them not very creative. What he really liked to do is litigate. And so now where he's at is he does kind of one or two litigation cases each quarter, and he focuses his position in his company is no longer really a social security attorney. He's the marketing guy. He creates all these cool YouTube videos and all these cool ads that he uses for gaining new social security clients for his associate attorneys. So he's doing what he loves to do in his business. He's got lots of freedom. He's creating an impact. Yeah, it makes a huge difference for him. And he's not dependent. The business is not dependent upon him answering all the questions and him being stressed and frustrated.
So I like this new AI stuff. It makes it easier. And I know like you've got a bank of in the program, you got a bank of lot already done processes that you can take them and then, alter them if it's something you don't know how to do, like how to fire somebody or whatever. You've got processes in there. And I think if I remember correctly, I don't know if you still have them in there. We got a lot of the process I had in my old law firm. We got them converted from Word documents into TouchStone in the bank. I rate you call it the bank, or what do you call it?
We call it the library. Yeah.
The library. Yeah.
So for PILMA clients, we have the PILMA law library. We have a general law library. We have a social security law library. There are actually, there's a workers' comp library. I think there are 4 total libraries that are your processes, Ken, that were your firm's processes that together we created a library. We also have a general process library. So there are tools like what we call the one-on-one coaching meeting, a management process that managers can use to coach employees. There are lots of great management tools and processes that we've created, and they're part of the general process library that people can download and edit. Only PILMA clients actually get the PILMA library, but everybody has access to the general process library.
Does the cost? I'm hearing all this stuff, and I was listening to this. I say, well, that's got to be $400-500 a month, or $200 a user, or something like that. Because So what does it usually run just to get the software?
$149 a month on a month-to-month basis. That's unlimited users, unlimited support. And there's a discount if you sign up for an annual subscription. It actually drops it down to $120 a month for an annual subscription.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and I think the big deal is, though, like you said, that the tool, and that's what you've got, the tool, and a lot of help with the library, but they still got to do some more. I mean, it's not going to happen over,
No, it's not magic. It's we're making it sound kind of magical with the AI writing the processes for you in the libraries. It does make it easier, but I will say that what we found is that the services that we offer, our clients are almost all. Originally, we thought we were just going to be a software company. All we have to do is give them the software. But what we've heard from most of the people that come to us is they want services. They want someone to help them create a process dependent business. And so we have some great services that people can purchase. And that's in addition to the $149 a month.
Yeah, I know we did it, I hired y'all for like 12 weekly coaching calls for an hour and to
Yeah,
look
we
at our
have,
stuff, keep us accountable, basically to keep us accountable.
yes,
And it wasn't
absolutely.
about,
And to teach you, because again, we've had over 20 years experience systematizing companies. We know what processes you need, an important piece that a lot of people need to understand. Because when Michael Gerber gives you the impression that you're supposed to write a process for everything in your business. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've never seen anybody, including myself, who's written a process for everything in their business. There are 4 questions that you want to ask yourself if you should write a process for this. The first question is, if it's going to take me longer than 5 minutes or so to teach someone how to do it. If it only takes you 2 or 3 minutes to tell someone how to do something like opening the office, I don't put the key in the lock, turn it clockwise. You don't need a process for that. So the first question, does it take more than 5 minutes to teach someone how to do this? If it doesn't take 5 minutes, you don't need a process for it. Second question, is it something that happens frequently? Because if it only happens once, it's a project, it's not a process. And yes, I actually use TouchStone to plan out my projects. I actually plan it out writing, but you don't need a process for that. That's just me. I'm kind of OCD. I'm a process geek. So first question, does it take longer than 5 minutes? Does it happen more than once? Third most important question, how impactful is it to the company? So in other words, if someone does this incorrectly, if someone makes a mistake, will it have an impact on the company? If it takes more than 5 minutes, if it happens frequently, and if it has an impact on the company, yes, you absolutely need to write a process for that. And that is not everything that happens in the company. There's one other question, and that is, what are you doing as the owner, as the founder, or your top level people in your organization? What are you doing that you should not be doing? So for example, if you were doing payroll, Ken, I would say, Ken, you should not be doing payroll. You need to write a process for that and delegate it to a bookkeeper, even if it's a part-time bookkeeper. And this is where your virtual employees come in, because I can probably guarantee you that all sorts of your members are doing things like getting embroiled in their email for hours every day, trying to solve problems with their email. And they shouldn't be doing that. They can easily hire a virtual assistant to do that. So those are 4 important questions to really focus on whether or not you need to write a process.
and you say you have different programs, and I guess it's helping you do it different. I know you were telling me something about a new program you got coming out. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we've got, so really they kind of break down into four types of services. One service is called a data migration service. So if you're in SOP chaos and you've got processes all over the place, we'll take your processes and we'll migrate them. We'll into TouchStone, we'll get them organized, we'll get them linked to all the roles so that we can automatically create position-specific operating manuals for every employee in your company. So that's basically data migration. Someone who's in SOP chaos, they've got a bunch of processes. We've got another service, process writing services, where we teach your team how to write processes. So if you've got a good plan, then we can teach your team how to write processes. It's really a manager's responsibility to make sure that the processes in their department are written and followed. And they don't have to write all the processes themselves. They can have people within that report to them write processes. A third program we've got for people who really need some handholding, we call it the systemscaping program. It's kind of like we build the landscape of a process dependent business. It's done over 10 weeks, one-on-one with me, or sometimes in groups. I've done this with a couple of PILMA groups where we walk them through that 5-step plan and we build the systemic foundation of their process dependent business. It's basically 10 one-hour meetings. And at the end of that, they've built the whole foundation of their business. They've got their vision, their org chart, all of their processes identified and organized. All of their processes are linked to roles on the org chart. They've got position-specific operating manuals created for every box on the org chart. They've got all of their employees assigned. They've got complete functional accountability. One caveat here is it's not like at the end of that 10 weeks, they've got all of their processes written. They've got the foundation built. And now they've got a process writing plan to move on from. And then the newest service that we've just just developed that I was talking to you about last week is what we call SOP coaching. So someone who's got a pretty robust set of processes, it's kind of working okay. They've kind of got the foundation built. SOP coaching is a great ongoing tool. I'm working with a couple of your clients right now in SOP coaching, Ken. We basically teach them how to implement their processes, how to manage employees using processes, how to train. We help them realize what processes are missing. We help them realize kind of weaknesses in their org chart, in their four key functions of where their processes are organized, what areas of the business are missing. But it's not really a consultative. We call it SOP coaching, but it's really tactical. We're really focusing on getting their processes built and implemented.
So if somebody wanted to do I guess you offer free demos or trials or something.
Yeah. We have a free offer. I think your guy, Tyler, is your podcast guy. He asked me for a link. There probably will be a link in the notes of this podcast where there's a landing page which talks about some of our services. It basically recommends that someone schedules what I call a walkthrough call with me. So they'll basically fill out a couple of questions that allow us to come to that meeting fully prepared to address their specific challenges and issues. And I am not a hard sales guy, so this is not a sales call. It's really an exploratory call. Really valuable. Obviously, I'm going to offer some different tools and services that we have, but believe me, it's not a sales call. It's an exploratory call. Also, they can just reply or go to our website. It's www.businessdesigncorp.com, businessdesigncorp.com, or they can just email me. It's Mike Mills at businessdesigncorp.com. And just say, hey, I heard Ken's podcast. I'd be interested in one of those walkthrough calls. And we'll get on a call together where we'll look at where they're at, what are their challenges, their specific issues, and I'll show them how to solve it. I mean, nobody's been in this business of implementation of SOPs as long as my business partner Shannon and I have been into this. I mean, we've been doing this for more than 20 years, as I said earlier, first as eMyth consultants and then as really tactical process specialists.
Anything I didn't ask you that I should ask you?
Kind of think about that. We got the law firm library ideas. Oh yeah, one question that we might want to answer is like, what's the first thing someone should do if they want to get their business organized? So, let me make it super simple. The first thing is they need to organize their processes into four key functions. There are basically only four things that happen in any business. You got to get the business. So those are your sales and marketing processes. You've got to do the business, all the processes for client fulfillment, customer service. You've got all the processes that go on behind the scenes for finance, admin, HR, IT. And you might say, well, we don't have any HR processes. Well, yeah, you do. You've got recruiting processes, onboarding processes, hiring, training, firing. Those are all HR type processes. And then the fourth key function. So you've got processes for sales and marketing, processes for operations, processes for finance, HR, admin. You've also got processes for strategy and management, strategic planning, managing people. How do you get from here to where you want to get to? What's your vision? What's your mission, purpose, and values? So, that's the first thing. Organize. If you have a whole bunch of processes, get them organized in those four key functions. And if you want to actually a sample list, we've got a list of the top 50 processes every growing business needs. So if you don't have any processes and you need a primer, just reach out for that. I got that. The second thing I would do is make sure you've got an organizational structure. That's going to provide you absolute clarity of roles. If everybody's doing everything in your business, that means nobody's accountable for anything. So create an organizational structure, especially if you're going to start hiring virtual assistants, because you have to be absolutely clear on what you want them doing. Do you want them interfacing with clients? What do you want them to do? Virtual assistant is not a role. That's basically saying, I want someone to help me do something, and they're not here. They're in the Philippines or they're in Mexico. So you need them to fill a role. It happens to be a VA that fills a role. And then the third thing, so organize your processes, get your org chart, get clarity of roles. And then last thing would be just determine which processes really need to be written, using those four key questions that I had. And I would say that some of the SOPs that every law firm needs. You need a recruiting process, you need a hiring process, you need an onboarding process, you need a training process, a management process, a firing process, and an intake process. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 processes. You could get those. That would have such an impact on your organization. So yeah, that's probably one thing I would add.
Yeah. I remember you many years ago talking about that. No matter what kind of business, there's four things: getting business, doing the business,
running it, and managing it. Yeah. Really, only 4 things.
Good deal. Yeah, absolutely. Well, good deal. Well, thank you so much, and I want you to more formally invite you. I want you to speak next year at our summit.
Sounds great. I'd love to. Where's it going to be?
San Antonio, I think.
Ah, great.
We were in Denver. This year. So
yeah, the last time I spoke was when you were in New Orleans.
Yeah, it's been a few years ago.
Yeah.
I think it's time to come back around. So anyway, thank you so much. And until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
Thank you, Ken.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.